right, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Deals and Deadlines with super agent Hadley and Chernoff. I'm Matt Chernoff. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day. If you are new here, I will remind you this podcast is available to you on all podcast platforms. So if you're just finding us, thank you. We do all things sports business here with new episodes dropping each and every Friday. And you can watch us on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, Hadley, we have a lot of ground to cover here today. Let's start now that camps are underway in the NFL with the potential holdouts, although maybe we're done with holdouts. Trey Hendrickson, the star defensive end of the Bengals, have had this back and forth with Cincinnati that's been very uncomfortable. He had left town, said he was holding out. Well, now as of this past Wednesday, he is ending his holdout without being any closer to a new deal. He was getting fined $50,000 per day, which I guess would force anybody's hand to want to show up. He said it's a good faith gesture to show up in camp. Will this push Cincinnati to get something done?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's the $50,000 a day. I mean, although it's a lot of money in Trey's world, he's got many millions of dollars. Obviously, I'm not involved in this negotiations, but if I was to speculate what's going on is one of two things. Either he was getting so much bad press about not being there and hurting the team and being too selfish that he felt like I'm going to come back there and support the team with the idea of now putting the pressure on the Bengals. Or, which I hope it's the or, he has a deal in place. They've come to terms on certain numbers. They're trying to fine-tune certain guarantees, maybe upfront money versus backloaded money, guaranteed money, et cetera. So it's going to be one of those two things. My gut tells me they're going to come to terms. The Bengals are going to, wake up and decide, hey, this is our best player, one of our best players, if not the best player. We need to compensate him and do it the right way. There'll be some give and take. He won't get everything he wants, but he'll be happy enough that he will come back and play on multi-years with the Bengals. Okay,
so two questions. How does it get to this, where there's so much acrimony that one side is using terms like atrociously low offers? The Bengals are so dug in on their side. So I guess that's part one of it. Part two, you as the agent. When the player comes to you and says, Hadley, I think my only recourse here is to hold out. Do you try to talk him out of it and say show up in good faith? Or if you think this is best for your career, I'll kind of side with what you want to do?
We never actually tell a player what to do. We always advise players. In fact, our actual legal term is contract advisor. So we would sit down with someone like Trey, and I've done this with plenty of players, unfortunately, where you have to sit down collectively and hear what they think. And sometimes they're right. We kind of share what we think, and we kind of have a meeting of the minds, like in any business would have, on what we feel is best to do it. And then we also talk about plan A and plan B. All right, let's go with plan A, which is what you really want to do. Let's see where this goes. And if this moves the needle, great. If not, let's now go to plan B. So there's always these talks going on. It's his team, I am sure, has talked about this through and through about what the next steps are. And unfortunately, we've talked about in the past, the Bengals are notorious for being like this, and they're old school, and they refuse to change. So they're prepared for this. This is nothing new that they've dealt with the Bengals before. They see how the Bengals handle other players. So again, tactical move to leave. Now is it a tactical move to come back? Is there a semi-deal in place, and coming back will help move the needle? Sometimes a team may say, hey, great that we're having these better conversations, but we're not having any more conversations unless he's here in Cincinnati.
Do you worry about, and this is not, the players care at all, do you worry about, I have future negotiations with this organization and they're going to judge me for this one and the next one?
No, you have to worry about that player because you are representing that player and that player only in this case. And again, players dictate salaries. Agents, yes, we like to take credit for a lot of the things. And yes, we negotiate the guarantee, the length, the upfront money, the bonuses, all these things. We have to be well-versed and do those things. But you can't ask for $25 million a year if you're not truly a $25 million a year player. You will lose respect with that team, and that may affect you personally down the road. But I'm sure what they're asking for Trey is within the ballpark. It is about guaranteed money. It is about years, and it's about, of the money that's being paid, how many are paid in the first 2 or 3 versus years 4 and 5 if it is a long-term deal like that.
Okay, let's talk about an interesting situation. Christian Wilkins, the former Dolphin, now a former Las Vegas Raider, who was released this week, and it's being described as due to an incident that happened with a teammate that led to the release. Now, there have been a lot of different reports and rumors about what happened. There was one report or rumor, anymore I don't know, that was like he kissed a teammate's forehead, made the teammate uncomfortable, he went to HR. There was a story about him tickling a teammate's feet. I mean, these are the things that are out there. Well, then Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk says, trust me, I have a source on this. The real story has not been released. None of the major details have come out. So I don't know what's at play here. But have you ever seen something like this that led to a younger player who's talented released that quickly?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't think that's why they're legally releasing him. They are claiming, the Raiders, that he did not follow through on medical stuff and rehab from a surgery. They wanted him to have another surgery. He didn't want to have it. So there's a lot of stuff, medically speaking, and that's why they're not paying the remaining guaranteed money. And it's a lot of money. It's $30+ million. It's going to go through arbitration. My gut tells me he wins it, because it's very hard to prove that a player didn't follow protocol exactly to the T that will affect this type of guaranteed money. Now, the smear campaign that's gone on about these other things, and I've dealt with it on both sides of it, where I've had players that have been allegedly doing something that comes out in the media, and you've got to deal with it. But, you know, what this thing really is that the powers to be in Vegas aren't the same people that signed him to this $100 million deal. Different GM, Spytek came from the Buccaneers, different head coach. So you have a whole new regime there. And I think they just didn't vibe with him, whether it was the personality and found an out because of this physical therapy or this lack of rehab that he did, and they're trying to get out of the deal. Either way, it's going to end up costing them money, I believe. And how does it affect Christian moving forward? It could have a negative effect on, it will for sure have a negative effect on a team or some teams.
Where do you think this, you said smear, I'll use that term. Where does the smear campaign, these are some of the craziest things I've heard that, hey, I don't know if it's enough if he's playing jokes or being silly to do whatever. Why would this be the thing that comes out about the release or following the release?
I think it's just because it justifies maybe, again, who released it, right? Was it someone within the Raiders throwing it out there? Was it a former teammate that doesn't like him and they're just put it out there and now it's grown? I don't know, but the NFL spends a lot of time and money on investigating players' backgrounds, pre-draft, and even into free agency. So this was a former first-round draft choice. And whatever these characteristics that he has or doesn't have were there going back many years. And so was he playfully doing something and now we're turning into something bigger than it really is? I don't know. The guy's a really good football player when he's healthy, obviously. And so there will be a team when he's healthy that's going to sign him. Especially if he gets, everyone's hoping, the remaining 31 teams are hoping he gets this guaranteed money. Because then you can play him the league minimum. It costs you next to nothing. And if he turns out to be not the player you thought he was on the field, and more importantly, off the field, you cut him. Yeah. It costs you nothing. So if he gets the guaranteed money, he will have plenty of suitors. If he doesn't, things could be a little interesting as we move forward with Christian.
Okay, let's talk about Rashawn Slater, star tackle of the LA Chargers, who just inked a new deal, making him the highest paid tackle in NFL history, $114 million, $92.5 million of it guaranteed. Not a huge story there. I mean, a guy makes a lot of money. That's a big deal. The interest in this story is Rashawn Slater finalized the contract details days, weeks after finalizing a divorce, which has a lot of people, kind of cocking an eyebrow wondering, could the Chargers have slow played this if asked by Rashawn's agent? Did Rashawn and his agent say, hey, we're not in a rush to get this deal done. Let me get the deal closed here on the divorce, take care of the financials there before I see my next big payday? I'm sure you've seen situations like this, right? So what is your gut on how the timeline worked?
I have seen situations like this. In fact, later on our podcast today, we're going to have Randy Kessler, who is the prominent attorney who represents some of the biggest athletes and entertainers in the history of sports entertainment and deals with this personally. And he'll kind of give us his thoughts about
divorce cases, family law, that type of thing.
Correct. Yeah. And, it'll be interesting to see because it looks like he filed for divorce knowing that he was potentially going to have this, was hoping to settle the divorce sooner than doing the case. So, again, we're only speculating because I don't know the details, and maybe Randy could talk about this later, is that, because he's not involved with the case, but at least give hypotheticals, is that, the wife's attorney, I'm sure, did some research. All you got to do is Google him, and you'll find out he's one of the best, and he's negotiating, and he's up for a new contract. So that came into play. Again, they may have decided, hey, give me X dollars. I don't care what else you make on top of that. That's probably what happened, and we'll move on our marry way? Did they have children? I don't know the details with that. So there's a lot of moving parts, but it is, you think about these things when you are negotiating and doing things, and it doesn't happen often, but it is part of the business. And, you try to be transparent with your spouse or the people in your family so you can work through this and come to a resolution that everybody wins in this situation.
We will talk to Randy Kessler about this and some of those other prominent cases he's been involved with a little bit later on. Coming up next, though, Major League Baseball has another issue on the gambling front, a scandal, which we'll talk about. Plus, LeBron James and Nikola Jokic going into business together. And it's quite the business idea. We'll pick Hadley's brain about that as Deals and Deadlines continues. All right, we continue with this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt. Randy Kessler will join us, prominent divorce trial attorney. He'll talk to us about, we mentioned Rashawn Slater a little bit earlier, going through a divorce and then getting a big deal with the Chargers. We'll talk to Randy about some of those cases he's been involved with. Hadley, here's where I wanted to start, though, with you. We have another member of the Cleveland Guardians who's been mentioned in this gambling scandal that Major League Baseball has now launched an investigation on. Emmanuel Clase has been a star closer there in Cleveland for some time. I guess one of the things specifically to drill down that's being discussed is the first pitch of an inning, which I didn't even know you could gamble on that.
It's funny. I didn't know you can bet, hey, this pitch is going to be a ball. Or the first. I never knew that.
I know you could bet on a lot. Didn't know about this. But the reason it's been brought up is his first pitch of each inning has been really bad. Not just throwing balls, and you can bet on a ball or strike. It looks like he's spiking balls into the ground. It looks like he's throwing them off. Nearly 20% of his first pitches have been out of the zone when every other pitch is about 5% as far as strike ball rate. So he's got good control. So it's raised some red flags. He had a teammate already who is being investigated by Major League Baseball in this front. And you and I have talked about this a lot. This is the tip of the iceberg. This stuff is going to keep happening. I don't know what the repercussion has to be, or I don't know what baseball or football or basketball. You're in bed with these gambling organizations now, so this is what comes with it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing about it is, like you said, it's the monitoring of this. These leagues, NFL, MLB, NBA, are all in bed with these betting services now. And the fact that prop betting, it used to be wins and losses. We go back to Pete Rose. It was about betting that your team would win or lose, allegedly. But here now it's prop bets. And I learned, like you learned, that you can bet, hey, the first pitch of this at bat is going to be a ball. And, 20+% of it is. So, obviously, if you bet on your own game, your own playing, your own team, it's a lifetime ban. If you bet another game that you're not playing in, it's a year ban. But again, you're not betting on the game, it's a pitch. Mm-hmm. But again, it's still the integrity.
Sure, that's the point.
And if you're doing that, what else are other people doing or you're doing? So it opens up Pandora's box, right? So Manfred's in a tough situation here because he's definitely in the right, and Major League Baseball's in the right, that you have to stop this. But how deep does this go? Mm-hmm. And even if you're not betting, but you have your buddies betting.
It's called a proxy.
Is that what it's called?
I've heard stories.
No, so again, I think this goes a lot further than you think it is. I mean, look, the NFL is mad that players are selling their tickets. That's
for more price than right.
This is betting on the game.
But what you said is a key point. I think we need to stop there on. Clase's mind is like, well, it's just one pitch. It's not affecting. I'm going to go get the outs in the inning. It's the whole idea of what else could not be on the level, right? And if sports, they can pretend to care about all these other things. They could pretend to care about assaults and harassments and sexual, all that stuff. They should care about it more. They don't. What they care is the integrity, which is the word you use. If our game's not on the level, that affects the gambling money, the advertising money. All of it could come crumbling down if people start to believe it is on the level. But if they start to have some doubts, it causes a huge problem.
And on a personal level, I'm going to bring it back a few years. I think Manfred really screwed up with not handling the Astros in a more serious manner when they were doing stuff for sign stealing and blatantly doing stuff. Yes, certain administrative people, but they still got their ring. They still are World Series champions, and there wasn't enough enforcement. And that's really affecting the integrity of the game. That's wins and losses here, and that's a team doing it. And they kind of like said, oh, well, we're going to punish a few people, and that'll be it. And here, the guy can say, hey, it's one pitch. Doesn't matter. I still won the game. I'm still an all-star. I'm still one of the dominant players, so it doesn't affect my wins and losses. So again, you got to prove it. And then secondly, it's setting the bar And then you've now got to investigate everybody and do some thorough research. And it's very easy to kind of do research on players that are doing stuff and their ties to other people that are maybe gambling. So again,
a proxy example would have been Ohtani's translator.
Correct.
So there's the problem. It's so easy to get to these guys and have somebody else who's a buddy who has another buddy. You brought up the great point, and spoken like a lawyer, you have to prove it, right? And is there enough he said, she said, or enough way I can deny of like, hey, I'm talking to buddies, and in a conversation, I'm like, the first pitch, how do you prove that?
No, it's hard. And listen, I may be in the minority. I'm not 100% sold on the Ohtani story.
Of course not. You shouldn't be.
I believe, he's Michael Jordan type. When Michael Jordan had issues and they said, all right, to retire from basketball and play baseball, that wasn't about retiring from basketball and playing baseball.
There's always a fall guy that's easier than Ohtani having to deal with the aftermath.
And Ohtani is the face, and he is the biggest international star we've ever had in Major League Baseball. And so is it easy for them to throw this guy under the bus and take care of him, and they do their own thing?
And the story goes away.
The story goes away. So, again, I think there's a lot of this going on. And, again, a 162-game season is a long season. I think there's a lot of this going on. And I think Major League Baseball and the other sports set themselves up for this by getting in bed with these gambling entities.
Okay, let me ask you about what happened in the Phillies clubhouse. So Rob Manfred was on his tour of all the different clubhouses and shows his face and waves and speaks to clubs. Not a big deal there. While speaking to the Phillies, Bryce Harper steps up and says, if the salary cap is one of the things you're here to talk about, or the only thing you're here to talk about, the talk is over. You can get the bleep out of the clubhouse. Easy for Bryce to take that stand. $400 million. We get it. But if I'm Rob Manfred, see, here's where he's just so poor at his framing. Guys, I'm not talking to you about salary cap. I want to talk to you about a salary floor. I want to talk to you about teams like the Marlins, teams like the Rays. We want to make sure these teams raise their money. Now, that's not going to hit with a lot of players because they don't want to hear you're getting capped. I get that. The framing that baseball's done with this already, and Bryce as an example, is already very poor.
What Bryce basically said, if you haven't heard it, let me say it now. 2026, there will be a Major League Baseball lockout. They are going to butt heads, and this is a big part of it, is that baseball is at a crossroads on where they're going, competing with basketball and football. And to be honest with you, even though I'm on the agent side and we want to maximize player salaries always, for the product to sustain, we have to have both. Not necessarily a cap on player salaries, but a stricter fine or penalty that if you spend over a certain threshold, it costs you a lot of money. But coming along the same thing, like you said earlier, we have to have a floor. And because these teams are not spending money, their revenues are going up, they're pocketing so much money, their valuation is going through the roof. So both have to happen. And I think if they can do both, and again, serious penalties on both sides if you don't fulfill your side of the obligation, I think that's going to be the happy medium. Teams can spend what they want. It's just going to cost them more. And teams that don't spend will spend more, which will help the other half of the league, not the Bryce Harpers, but the bottom half of the league.
Which, by the way, those are the guys, I'm not going to say need. The wrong word is not need the money. Those are the guys who can gain the most.
100%.
The guys at the top are already making their, like if there's a lockout, Bryce is like, I'll put my feet up at the pool. I'll be fine. Those other guys, they want to see those salaries increases on.
And it will make these teams more competitive.
Agreed.
Which makes the game better.
It benefits everybody.
Correct. Which will help revenue, which will help viewership, which will benefit, which will mean more money, which means the upper echelon will get more and the lower floor will still go up. So
but to your point,
will win.
Manfred
has done it. He's positioned this the wrong way. He's already butting heads with several people, including stars.
Because they know he works for the owners.
Correct.
And we're going to get a work stoppage. I mean, it's just a matter of how long and how ugly it's going to get. Yeah. Okay, so LeBron James was on a yacht this week. I don't know if you were on a yacht, Hadley, but LeBron.
I'm sure it wasn't his first yacht.
No, probably not. So LeBron, Nikola Jokic, and Maverick Carter had a meeting on a yacht this week, which wasn't a random meeting.
Nicole's agent, too. That's the big piece of this.
That they were discussing the launching of a new global basketball league that's backed by Maverick Carter that will start in 2026. So here are some of the details. 6 men's teams, 6 women's teams. They'll have a touring format, very kind of live, the way that we've seen it with golf. Players get some equity stakes in the game. It's backed by global investors, so money is not going to be a problem here. They'll use NBA rules, block player ownership, and again, they're going to have an opportunity to have some stakes in what they're doing. The question is, where are they going to get the players? Who are going to be the players who are in this? How are they going to get the attention? Is it going to be a full-fledged league? Is it going to look like Ice Cube's 3-on-3? Like, what could this potentially look like?
So what's different between this and LIV, from my perspective, is LIV golf, the PGA Tour, is an individual sport. And most of the people that left had super success on the PGA, had won majors, had won many tournaments. This was a chance for them to really cash out, make money, play less golf, and still play in the majors. So that's really all they cared about. Basketball is a team sport, and the NBA is by far the best league there is, bar none. And everybody wants an NBA championship in their pedigree. And I think I hope it doesn't happen personally, because I think it would destroy the NBA. It would destroy European basketball. In some countries, it's big because you're taking away from the history of these leagues.
Do you think they could get active players? Because NBA rules prohibit players from owning stakes in other basketball teams or organizations. So how would they find players is my question.
Players would have to wait till they become free agents, and then when they became free agents, they'd leave. They would just leave the league. And so, or they may try to join another league, and there may be litigation. I think it's a lot more difficult to do this. And again, when you hear about women's basketball, I didn't know women's basketball on the international level was that big. The WNBA is having success now, but if you follow the WNBA's success, it all goes down to Caitlin Clark. So she's not going to be part of that, and I don't think she would do that, because I think she's a loyalist. I think she's like a Tiger Woods and a Rory McIlroy who believe in what got them here is the PGA, and in her case is the WNBA. I don't see her doing stuff. She's not playing this other off-season league. She gets it and stuff. So,
but could you see an older NBA player on the back nine of his career saying, they're paying me, offering me a heck of a lot more than an NBA team would at 35 or 36. So you use my name power. I'll go play in your league to try to give them some support. Is that who the profile is?
It may be. And again, that's where the Saudi money has been going to LIV. Right. But everyone I speak with, nobody watches LIV.
No.
I mean, it's not so there's disposable income from various people that don't care. And they're happy that they have these leagues and they can do what they want to do. And if there are some older aging NBA players that can get more money doing that, of course they should do that. And some of them have already won championships and been involved in the game for a long time. I don't see it happening. And if it does happen, which I believe LeBron and the people out in Europe can really make it happen, I don't see it being successful. The NBA is such a great product as far as basketball goes. And you've got to get too many players to leave. And I think these players want to make the money, but they're making the money.
Could you see LeBron and Jokic trying to lead a charge of playing or just ownership?
But again, where's LeBron in his game now? Where is this going? And so I do think you'll get a lot of the European stars that are in Europe playing maybe migrate to this, because I don't think it's a big deal to them. I just find it hard to believe that you're going to have Ant-Man saying, you know what, I'm out of here, I'm going to go play and travel and play to make all this money. He'll lose all the fame that he has, and I think that will affect their marketability, and I think it really will have a negative effect on the overall picture of basketball. But again, I wouldn't put it by anybody. LeBron runs the NBA. They got his son drafted. His son is going to make the team again. So he controls where basketball is. And, it's not good for the game, but I wouldn't put it past any of these people to not making it a true try at it.
It's an interesting discussion point. All right, coming up, Randy Kessler will join us. We'll pick his brain about Rashawn Slater's case, who we told you a little bit earlier, gets his big deal from the Chargers just after finalizing a divorce. How much does that happen when you're dealing with high-profile cases? We'll find out next. All right, we continue with this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt. Appreciate you guys joining us. Remember, new episodes of the pod drop each and every Friday morning. You can find it on any podcast platform, and you can also watch us on our 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, our next guest is a high-profile divorce and trial attorney. I'm sure if you've been around Atlanta or sports in general, you've heard the name Randy Kessler. He's here to talk about some of the behind the scenes of what he has to do on a daily basis. He joins us on Deals and Deadlines. Randy, we appreciate the time. How are you?
Great to be with you guys.
Well, we're glad to have you. So I guess one of the reasons, and several reasons we want to talk to you is earlier today, Hadley and I on the show.
By the way, both of us are happily married.
Yes,
so this is not a
well, let's keep it that way.
Yes.
Hadley, Randy, I wanted to ask you about a situation with Rashawn Slater, the LA Chargers tackle who just signed a record-breaking deal, $92.5 million. The reason this one's interesting is that gets done days, weeks, whatever, after a high-profile divorce case is taken care of. So a lot of people are wondering, Did his agent, did the Chargers, did they say, you take care of that, now we'll do this, and all of a sudden it keeps the money separate? What is your gut on something like that?
So my gut is, you never know. You fight for money, and you get it when you can get it. And Hadley can tell you, right? You don't worry about divorce. If you can get a big chunk like that, you get it. And look, I'm looking at the thing that caused this whole scene, this tweet by whatever, Dove Kleiman, who said, talk about good timing. He's right. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe it wasn't. But getting a big NFL deal after the divorce is finished is better for him. But I'll tell you that this gets really complicated in a lot of situations because when does he earn the money, right? That's a big question. Does he earn it when he plays? How about he earned it when he started playing biddy ball and started training and worked out and played for college? All those things he did before he got the contract, and a lot of it he did while he was married, right? Making some tackles, playing well in his previous season. So it would be complicated had he gotten this big deal during the marriage. So the fact that it was signed after the divorce was finished is financially better for him, intentional or not.
So, Randy, let me ask you this, though. So, obviously, if you were on the other side and representing the spouse in this, what would you advise your client as far as timeliness of it? Because obviously they knew about this. They knew he was about to sign something. I'm not sure if there are any children involved. So obviously not just with this player, but with any players for that matter. How would you advise that side of it, not on the player side?
I'd advise her to do what apparently she's doing. Be nice, be supportive, because this guy can do so much more for you voluntarily than you can get a court to do. I don't think she's got a chance of going back to court and saying, Judge, if I'd known he was going to sign a $144 million deal, I never would have divorced him. Right? It really doesn't work like that. So I think the best thing she can do, and this goes for non-high profile people too,
is work with them.
Be nice to everybody, and you get a lot more with kindness than you do by hiring lawyers and making them go after you in court. He's got a lot of money, got a lot of resources, a lot of connection. Stay his friend. If you're not the Mrs. Rashawn Slater, the next best thing is to be the former Mrs. Rashawn Slater.
All right, Randy, let me ask you about this.
By the way, with some money in your pocket.
Yeah, right.
You've
represented some high-profile clients, and without getting into specifics, I'm just going to give the audience an idea. Names like Cardi B and Cam Newton, Dominique Wilkins, T-Pain, Jerry Stackhouse, just some others. Without getting into specifics, did anything surprise you with several of your clients when it came to either financials, the relationship, how maybe contentious things were getting? Like, what have you seen throughout the years in repping some of these high-profile cases that maybe has surprised you?
Okay, we got a 24-hour podcast going here because
take as much time as you want. We'll wait.
No, every single case is a surprise. I've been the biggest surprise with representing folks that are successful in athletic careers and entertainment careers and hip hop careers is how disciplined they are. Right, the ones that really make it, that hold on to their money, that have longevity. They're just so damn disciplined. And I don't just mean in working out. I mean in their nutrition, in their meetings, in their politeness, in their listening to professionals when Hadley tells them this is what you got to do, and they accept his advice because that's what he does. The ones that make it, the big-time guys and women, are the ones who accept advice and have good discipline. So that's the big picture stuff. As far as hearing their stories, you name it, we got people that don't understand that being the former Mrs. Rashawn Slater is valuable. And I use that name interchangeably because I don't want to put in there the name I'm thinking about. But, if you're nice to the folks that make the money, they can be nice back. And just, some people get it. Some people think, go hire a big shot lawyer and they'll get me all the money in the world. The other thing I'll let you know is you don't get rich by suing for child support, even if the person's really wealthy. Unless you're in California, you get one of those unique cases. But otherwise, 5, 10, 15 grand a month to raise a child, that doesn't give you millions in your pocket. That money goes out the door. So being nice, getting the extras, courts can only do so much. All they can do is give you some money. They can't make them buy you a car and get you a house and do that kind of stuff. Being nice is, sometimes people get it from the get-go. Sometimes I have to explain it a few times. But that's the big shocker to me, that courts don't give you what you want. Humanity, personality skills is what gets you where you want to be.
Yeah, one of the bigger things that obviously when we get a client, we talk about the pitfalls of being a professional athlete is obviously the people out there trying to always come after your money and things like that. And, Randy, I know this because we've obviously, unfortunately, had to work together on certain things where we have clients, and you see it all the time, where a lot of players have children out of wedlock. And all of a sudden now you are dealing with that, and there isn't the marriage, and there isn't the former missus. It's someone that is baby's mama, as they say, and so you're always dealing with that, and you're having to deal with they look at it as a money grab, and that's a hard thing to deal with. Obviously, there's thresholds jurisdictionally and legally on what you can get from certain players in certain jurisdictions. But Randy, talk about how you deal with that, because there's a lot of emotions that go into that when it's somebody that you don't have a long-term relationship with.
Yeah, those are hard. And that's thinking if someone's got a good agent like you, Hadley, and talks them through it, because there's a lot of anger, right? I was set up. She told me she was on birth control. This was a one-night stand. I can't believe I'm going to be paying child support the rest of my life. And you got to get over all that. Once it's done, judges don't care whether it was a one-night stand or a 30-year marriage, and the child has no say in that. So the child is innocent. Think about that. Think about the innocent person in the room, which is the child, and let's figure out what's best for that child. You can't go back and undo what you did. And you had sex with that person. They had a child. If it's your child, there's only two ways to go. You can say, I'm out and I'm just going to pay money, and you'll probably regret that later. Or talk to your family, talk to your friends, think about it long and hard, but don't be mad at her. It's hard not to be mad at her. You can deep down inside be mad at her, but that's not going to help the child. It's not going to help you. It's sort of like, people that are victims of crime. You always hear how they forgive the murderer. And I'm sorry to draw such a drastic comparison, but forgiveness and moving forward is huge. And these guys got to focus on what they do in their craft, and holding on to that anger is not going to help anybody. It's not going to help the child. That's the one takeaway that I get, which is do your best to compartmentalize. If you're angry at her, put that in a box and figure out how do you move forward, how do you figure it out financially, and do you want this child in your life? And if so, act like you want the child in your life. The child needs you. Period.
I feel like, Randy, we buried the lead on the fact that you have, helped several Real Housewives of Atlanta in their divorce cases too. So I feel like the audience should know that, and maybe not specifically talking about them, just in general. How expensive are we talking? Some of these cases can get on both sides, whether it goes to mediation or to trial, because in theory, it could be done in 6 months. Or it could take 6 years.
Yeah, save your money. Look, I'm not going to talk about things that are private, but we just had a case that was, very publicly reported, where we represented a Real Housewife, and we had to enforce a prenuptial agreement that was not, that was opposed. The other side didn't want it enforced. And when we finally got it enforced, the judge ordered him to pay us $225,000 in lawyer fees that she had to spend getting something into place that they previously agreed on. If they'd worked it out, that's money they could have been sharing instead of giving it to us.
All right, let me kind of close this, unrelated to what you do on your day job, so the people listening know. Randy is a longtime season ticket holder, courtside for the Atlanta Hawks. Been a rough couple of years, my friend, but there's been some changes, and I just want to get your thoughts on where the Hawks are headed and how you see the future of the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, they had to change everything. I always like change. It makes you excited about what's going to happen. I'm excited as can be. And, look, for me, like you said, we have good seats, and the more basketball, the more fun I have, and the more time I get to go down and sit on the court and hang out with my friends like you guys. And every now and then we interact with a player, and that sort of gives me a jolt of, wow, that's, the side benefit of handling a lot of these cases. But I think they're going to be good. I think, they're sticking with Trey, and they're working around him, and they've given him some pieces, some people he can dish to, some people who can also shoot the three, so they're not always focused on Trey. I think they're going to make it a lot farther. I think the East has a lot of issues also. They've had a lot of problems. If we were in the West, I'd say, we'll be number 10, number 12. We're in the East,
It could be a 4 seed when things are all said and done. Well, listen, when the Kessler seats aren't being used, maybe think about some of
I got you guys.
Yeah, some lowly folks. Randy,
when they're being used, come with me, man.
Yeah, he is very generous when it comes
even
to
better
his seats, and he is, he's awesome.
It's not about what you know.
It's good to know
about who you know,
personally and professionally, and Randy, I can tell you, and all the listeners out there, Randy speaks everywhere across the country, and being involved with the NFLPA closely, Randy has done a number of speaking engagements where it's really about educating the players early on for the pitfalls, and who better than Randy, who's seen it from his side. Randy, we appreciate the stories. It's great. We could spend another hour picking your brain, but we appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Thanks, I appreciate it.
There's Randy Kessler, prominent, high-profile divorce attorney. I want to thank you guys. Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast anywhere on any podcast platform. New episodes drop each and every Friday. You can watch it on the 680 to the Fan YouTube channel. Just subscribe, resubscribe, keep doing it. It's a habit we'll appreciate. Thanks to Bella, our producer, and thanks to you guys for spending your time with us. We'll see you next time on Deals and Deadlines.